Human trafficking is perhaps the worst human rights violation in the world, and yet instead of receiving protection and justice, many trafficking victims are arrested and convicted of crimes they were forced to commit. Survivors of human trafficking too often have their voices silenced by unjust felony convictions for crimes they committed as a direct result, I should restate, of their trafficking offenses. Traffickers often force their victims to commit crimes, and the resulting criminal records prevent survivors from obtaining housing, employment, and other essential elements for life. Currently, most states have legal mechanisms that allow survivors of trafficking to seek vacatur or expungement of their criminal records that are tied to their exploitation. However, there is no equivalent legal framework at the federal level. The Trafficking Survivor Relief Act, or TSRA as I'm going to refer to it, is sponsored by Representative Fry, Liu, and Wagner, and it actually passed through the House Judiciary Committee last year. It seeks to address this gap by providing a pathway for survivors to vacate convictions and expunge arrest records for certain crimes that were a direct result of their trafficking. Additionally, the bill allows for the Office on Violence Against Women to allocate funding for civil legal services and establishes, and this is very important, an affirmative defense for victims so that they can avoid unjust criminalization at the outset. In an appendix to my written testimony, which I would really encourage you to read, I have included survivor impact statements, including the story of Holly Nadell, who built an incredible career and was acknowledged as a trafficking survivor by the court. But she recently lost everything due to a wrongful felony conviction. What is most alarming is that for most of these adults who are convicted in their late teens or early 20s, this experience began actually when they were children. Research shows that the average age at which children are targeted for both sex and labor trafficking is just 11 to 14 years old. And more than 60% of child trafficking victims are current or former foster youth. The GRACIE Act, which is Generate Recordings of All CPS Interviews Everywhere, was just introduced last week by Senator Blackburn and Senator Ossoff. And it incentivizes states to mandate audio or video recordings for all Child Protective Services or CPS interviews. It also provides necessary transparency and accountability to those who are on the front lines of protecting children. So I'm actually going to share with you the story that inspired the GRACIE Act. Abby, as I'm going to refer to her, was a young girl. She was caught in a nightmare that too many children face. Her parents were divorced, and during a visit to her father's house, a quarrel escalated into physical violence, and this was a young child in elementary school. Abby's father grabbed her neck, the incident was reported to a counselor, and the case was referred to CPS. The caseworker actually interviewed Abby at her mother's home because school happened to be closed that day for snow. That's very typical. The mother listened to the story from the next room and recorded the interview. The mother told the Abby told the investigator the same story she had told the counselor. However, the case was curiously dismissed. Months after the case closed, it was discovered that the official report distorted Abby's testimony, downplaying the assault as a mere grab to the arm, not the neck, an act which could have qualified as a felony under state law. Abby's voice was silenced. In the United States, 37.4% of children, that's more than 1/3 of all children, will be interviewed by CPS by the time they're 18. And without recordings, these children's testimonies can be easily misrepresented. So I actually have here a copy of the Congressional record. I know that you all know what this looked like, but for everyone else, this is just one day on the House floor. This is everything that was spoken. But what if you as members of Congress went to the House floor and you gave an important testimony and it was never recorded? What if there was only one witness in the hearing room, not a stenographer, but just an observer who recorded a personal analysis of your testimony? Would you take this personal analysis as an accurate record of your testimony? Do you want the most important statements of your life to be at the mercy of a stranger with a pen? So the lack of transparency and accountability within child welfare systems is appalling. Police are required to wear body cameras in most states, and the Department of Justice has mandated interrogation recordings since Eric Holder. But child victims are not afforded the same protections. So thank you so much. With that, I urge each of you to co-sponsor both of these bills, as well as the National Human Trafficking Database Act, the Crime Victims Fund Stabilization Act, the SHIELD Act, the Renewed Hope Act, and the Take It Down Act. Thank you so much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Basham.